talk normal.
We can have a conversation about anything you like.
Anything?
Can I ask you silly questions?
How can I embarrass my sister during a wedding toast, but like respectfully?
What's a good excuse to cancel dinner with my friends?
We're literally sitting right here.
Welcome to Into the Desert, exploring the wilderness of ideas. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. And if you want to support our channel, support us over on Patreon. There's a link in the description.
We don't understand the full implications, for example, of AI. You look at what's happening over in China, where they have, they're using a lot of the same technology to create what they call a social credit score. So in other words, they track everything you do, but rather than doing it to sell you products or to manipulate that, they track you to see how friendly to the government you are. They track where you go, who you talk to, what you text, what movies you watch, what books you read. They track everything, and then that it goes into a particular score, and based on that score determines on, well, are they going to let you rent this new apartment? Are you going to be able to get this new job? Or, what's going to happen in your life? And your social credit score. Do you want to take a vacation? Well, your social credit score may not allow you to take that vacation because the government says you just haven't been loyal enough for us to allow you to travel around the country, to give you such a benefit. And as you get expanded AI into this, where AI, right at the moment, it's sort of like no one really feared Orwell's, ever-present eye, because they didn't have enough people to actually watch everybody. Well, with AI, you can do that. With AI, you can begin to look at all these massive amounts of data and filter through with it and, begin assigning everybody, credit scores, as how well are you doing in our society? Do you approve of the government enough? Do you approve of our, you can do this with corporations. Are you working against our corporation or for our corporation? And if you're working against our corporation, then suddenly your searches don't on the search engine don't work, or your videos you put up on YouTube never quite get the same, as content creators. The YouTube algorithms are kind of a big mystery, and you just sort of try different things, and sometimes they work and sometimes they don't. And right. I don't think they're suppressing us because they don't like us, but how would you know when everything is kept secret? And that's really the big problem. And we say, well, AI is just objective. No, AI is a program, and it has the inputs of the programmers, and the inputs of the data that it feeds off of are all factors that are under the control of the programmers, so that they can make AI objective, but they can make AI biased.
Well, and they've already proved that. They've already had people who've proven,
oh, yeah.
They ask AI, does God exist? And depending on how you train it, you can get the computer to admit God exists, or you can get the computer to admit God doesn't exist. I've seen these arguments. They've had the same arguments. There's a YouTube channel who talks about all these controversial topics, and he'll use AI to debate it. And he'll have one AI be pro and one AI be for, and he pits the two against each other.
Yeah.
It is what you make it.
It's like any program. It's only as good as its inputs and its programmer.
Yeah. I mean, we're not talking something that's going to be self-aware and make its own decisions. But even if we get to that point, even if that is theoretically possible, which I'm not sure it is,
I don't think
but let's say it is. Let's say you can have a theoretical self-aware AI. It's self-aware in the same way we are. It is what you give it access to. It just because it's self-aware doesn't mean it suddenly knows everything about everyone.
We don't even know the implications of consciousness for ourselves. How are we going to know? I mean, if the AI becomes, comes out and says, well, it's fully conscious, and I decided I'm a Democrat, will all the Republicans accept that? If it comes out and says, I'm a Republican, will all the Democrats accept that? But it's AI. It doesn't. And? AI is like everything is a lot of pros, but there's also some real dangers there as well. And if we just sort of blindly stumble into it, You know, we will pay the consequences for it.
Even when we are talking AI, anybody who's actually worked with AI or done any sort of Google search on it realizes that it can only do so much.
Yeah.
You know, they had a lawyer do a brief via AI, but didn't double check it. And it cited cases that don't exist. And they submitted this to the court and then had to say, oops, sorry, we used AI. Maybe we should have checked it first. Right?
Yeah.
So it requires, even today, AI requires that you have someone check it. And I think going forward, it'll still require that someone checks what it does. It requires that human critical thinking component to do it. And if they don't know how to solve it for themselves, how can they tell you if the computer's doing it right or wrong? Yeah.
And we all see this. We use technology, following the directions on their map routine, and suddenly they're off in the middle of nowhere that on a road that stops when the navigator is telling you you're supposed to go forward and there's a river in front of you without a bridge.
I had that this weekend. The AI told me to go in the river. I'm like, no, I'm not driving in a river.
Yeah, so it's like these things are built into technology. Technology is great, but it's still, in many respects, it's mindless. It's following a set of rules without knowing what those rules actually are. Searle is a philosopher, has his Chinese room puzzle where you have a person inside a room following a rule book, and the rule book, you get symbols that come in, and he looks at the rule book and he processes the rules according to the rule book, and he sends out the appropriate symbols out. And the people outside the room go, I'm sending a question in Chinese, and they're getting a question out in Chinese, and they go, oh, look at this. This knows Chinese. The algorithm doesn't know Chinese. The person processing it doesn't know Chinese. All they're doing is just following this rule book and doesn't have any comprehension of what they're actually doing.
And let's hope that they both have the same rule book.
Yeah, that's what technology is. Technology is just following a set of rules. Programmers program those rules, and the rules are extremely complex and lots of things are going on. But ultimately it comes down to, you know, do you do this or do you do that? Everything in technology is binary. It's yes or no. And of course, it's billions and billions and billions of yeses and nos all formed together into a video game or into actually, you know, what we're doing now is going across as zeros and ones. And at no place is there any consciousness as to what these zeros and ones are. And so if the rule book and the zeros and ones tell you to go down this imaginary road and drive into the river because I think there's a bridge there when there isn't one, well, we as people look at that and go, no, we're not going to drive into the river. But if you had a self-driving car wouldn't know any difference, and it would go right into the river.
Yeah. Well, and Mark Rober even pointed out how you can fool a self-driving car into running into a wall.
Yeah. In the 90s, there was a big competition between the world chess champion and a computer, Big Blue. And eventually, Big Blue won, right? But for a while, it was like really, really close. Early on, the chess master always won. But after a couple of years, it got really, really close. And then there was one particular move where the computer made, and he thought, that's intelligence. They finally did it. This is actual intelligence. And he went and talked to the programmers after he lost the game, and because it was a several game match, and they said, no, this is just what we did, which is we just programmed more rules than you thought we had programmed in. And then once he realized that, he figured out how he could fool the algorithm, and he won every game after that. And yeah, now when they beat them, it's just that we don't have the capacity to process that many rules and come up with a way of saying, yeah, we can get around that. But still, the technology is wonderful, but it's got some dangers, and I think too often we're blind to the dangers.
Yeah. Well, let us know what you think. Is technology good? Is technology evil? Somewhere in between? Let us know down in the comments. We'd love to hear from you.